I've been thinking about something lately. I've been wondering about the relationship between the amount of information we consume and the way we feel. We talk constantly about the rise of anxiety, depression, stress, agitation, burnout, and emotional exhaustion in modern society. There are, of course, countless factors involved, and no single explanation can account for something so complex. But I wonder if there is one factor we don't discuss enough. The sheer amount of information the human mind is now expected to receive, interpret, evaluate, and emotionally process every day, and the near disappearance of the time and space we once had to recover from it. For most of human history, the amount of information a person was required to process was limited by the physical world around them. In 1800, a person might know what was happening within their family, their village, perhaps their region, and only occasionally the wider world. Today, before breakfast, a person can encounter a war, a murder, a political crisis, a friend's vacation, an argument between strangers, an advertisement suggesting their body is inadequate, a prediction of financial collapse, a medical scare, 10 work emails, and 50 short videos, each asking, if only briefly, for attention, interpretation, comparison, judgment, or an emotional response. Yet the human brain did not suddenly acquire a proportionally larger working memory, attentional system, or emotional processing capacity. And this transformation is not limited to news and social media. It has fundamentally changed our relationship with work. For generations, work was largely defined by a physical boundary and a period of time. You went to a place, you worked for a specified number of hours, then you left. Whatever problems remained at the factory, the office, the restaurant, or the store generally stayed there until you returned. Your employer could not reach into your pocket while you're eating dinner. A problem at work could not vibrate against your leg while you were playing with your dog. An email could not illuminate your bedroom at 10:47 at night and instantly pull your mind back into a problem you had physically left hours earlier. Today, millions of people carry their workplace with them everywhere they go. Email, text messages, group chats, scheduling apps, performance dashboards, notifications, phone calls, and remote access have created a world in which many workers are never completely at work, but they are also never completely away from it. A person can leave the office at 5 p.m. and still experience dozens of small psychological returns to work before even going to sleep. A notification appears, a subject line is read, a problem is mentioned in a group text, a number on a dashboard is disappointing, a supervisor sends a message that technically does not require an immediate response, but now the employee knows the problem exists. And once the mind knows, it cannot simply unknow. Even if the person never responds, part of the psychological burden of work has already entered their evening. Perhaps this is one of the mechanisms behind modern burnout that deserves more attention. Burnout may not be caused only by the number of hours we physically work. It may also be influenced by the number of times our minds are involuntarily returned to work during the hours in which we supposedly recovering from it. 10 interruptions lasting 30 seconds each do not necessarily equal 5 minutes of work. Each interruption can reopen a cognitive loop. It can introduce uncertainty, anticipation, frustration, responsibility, or fear. It can occupy attention long after the phone has been placed back on the table. The message may take 10 seconds to read while the emotional and cognitive residue lasts much longer. Technology has therefore done something remarkable. It has made work more flexible, but in many cases it has also made work psychologically borderless. And perhaps human beings need borders. For most of human history, boredom was unavoidable. Waiting meant waiting. Walking meant thinking. Eating often meant simply eating. Going to bed meant lying in darkness. There were enormous stretches of ordinary life during which no novel information was entering the mind. Those empty spaces may not have been empty at all. They may have been the places where the mind did some of its most important work, consolidating memories, allowing emotions to settle, connecting ideas, making sense of experiences, and disengaging from the constant demand to notice and respond to something new. We have now built a world in which almost every one of those spaces can be filled. Every quiet moment can become another opportunity for input. We can scroll while waiting, listen while driving, watch while eating, check notifications while talking, answer work emails from the couch, and consume information until the final moments before we fall asleep. We can even wake in the middle of the night and immediately invite both the world and the workplace right back into our minds. Perhaps one way of thinking about modern psychological strain is as a ratio. Incoming meaningful information divided by available processing and recovery time. The problem may not simply be that we are consuming too much information. The problem may be that we are consuming information faster than we can psychologically and emotionally process it, while simultaneously eliminating the quiet spaces in which that processing once occurred. And perhaps there are two unrelated but distinct problems worth considering. The first is burnout. If you are exhausted by your work, it may be worth asking whether the problem is only the number of hours you are working, or whether work has been allowed to occupy hours that are supposedly your own. How often does work enter your home without you consciously inviting it in? How many times during dinner, a movie, a conversation with someone you love, or the final hour before sleep does a notification pull some part of your mind back to work? Perhaps one small act of resistance is to rebuild boundaries where technology has erased them. Turn off work notifications for a few hours. Remove work email from the first screen of your phone. Decide that certain meals are places where work cannot enter. Give yourself an hour before bed in which tomorrow's problems are not allowed to arrive early. Not because the work is unimportant, but because recovery is an important part of the work. The second problem is broader. If you find yourself experiencing a vague but persistent sense of anxiety, agitation, irritability, confusion, or mental exhaustion, perhaps it is worth examining not only what is wrong in your life, but also how much information your mind is being asked to process. How many hours of your day contain no incoming information at all? When was the last time you drove somewhere without listening to anything? When was the last time you stood in line without reaching for your phone? When was the last time you ate a meal without a screen, went for a walk without headphones, or allowed yourself to be bored without immediately trying to escape it? Perhaps we should begin treating silence not as emptiness, but as recovery. We do not necessarily need to abandon technology, social media, podcasts, news, or entertainment. We may simply need to become more intentional about creating periods in which nothing new is entering the system. Drive in silence occasionally. Take a walk without headphones. Eat one meal without a screen. Turn off notifications that do not deserve immediate access to your attention. Leave the phone in another room for an hour. Allow a thought to finish before introducing another one. Allow an emotion to exist without immediately distracting yourself from it. Allow yourself to be bored. Perhaps the goal is not to consume less because information is inherently harmful. The goal is to restore some balance between input and recovery. Because if the modern mind is suffering, perhaps the answer is not always to ask what else it needs. Perhaps occasionally the answer is to give it less. Less noise, less urgency, less availability, less input. And perhaps in the space that remains, the mind can finally finish what it has been trying to do all along. Process, connect, recover, and rest.